In the 14th century, an invisible enemy swept across Europe, killing without mercy. Entire cities were wiped from the map. Families vanished overnight. And in just a few short years, nearly half of Europe's population lay dead. This was not war. This was not conquest. This was the Black Death, the deadliest pandemic in human history. The story of the Black Death begins not in Europe, but far to the east, where whispers of a mysterious illness began to spread along the trade routes of Asia. Travelers carried not only goods and stories, but also something unseen, something alive. It is believed that in the early 14th century, the bacterium Yersinia pestis found its way into the fleas of rats that infested merchant ships. These ships became floating coffins, unknowingly carrying death across seas and continents. The Silk Road, once a highway of prosperity, became the artery of an invisible killer. By the time the plague reached the bustling ports of the Mediterranean, it was already too late. Europe's fate had been sealed. When the first ships docked in Sicily in 1347, the horror began to reveal itself. Sailors staggered ashore, covered in black boils that oozed blood and pus. Within days they were dead. No one understood what this disease was or how it spread. Panic took hold as bodies piled up faster than they could be buried. The symptoms were terrifying: high fevers, vomiting of blood, and grotesque swellings in the lymph nodes called buboes, which turned a sickly black. Once these appeared, death almost always followed within days. For many, it was as if the wrath of God himself had descended upon the land. The plague moved with unimaginable speed. From Sicily, it spread north through Italy, into France, Spain, and eventually England. By 1348, it had reached the heart of Europe, striking Paris and London with equal ferocity. The cities, crowded and filthy, became perfect breeding grounds. People fled in terror, abandoning their homes, their families, and even their faith. Streets, once filled with life, now echoed with the sound of death carts, as men rang bells, crying, "Bring out your dead!" Corpses were loaded by the dozens, taken to mass graves where priests muttered hurried prayers before moving on to the next burial. The social fabric of Europe began to unravel. Priests, once seen as the spiritual guardians of the people, died in overwhelming numbers. Churches, once houses of hope, became silent tombs. Entire villages vanished. Fields lay abandoned, crops rotted, and famine deepened the suffering. In some places, the death toll was so high that wolves were said to wander freely through deserted towns. Fear and superstition thrived. With no understanding of germs or bacteria, many turned to desperate explanations. Some believed it was a punishment from God. Others blamed minority communities, especially the Jews, accusing them of poisoning wells. Across Europe, brutal massacres were carried out, fueled by hysteria and fear, adding human cruelty to an already unimaginable tragedy. And then came the plague doctors. Clad in long black robes, wide-brimmed hats, and terrifying beaked masks stuffed with herbs, they moved through cities like grim reapers. Their strange appearance was meant to protect them from the bad air, which people thought carried the disease. But the truth was that little could protect anyone from the Black Death. Even these doctors, symbols of dread, often fell victim themselves. Yet their image remains one of the most haunting legacies of this time. The Black Death did not discriminate. It killed peasants and kings, farmers and nobles, monks and merchants. In England alone, it wiped out nearly half the population. Across the continent, an estimated 25 to 50 million people perished in just a few years. To put that into perspective, imagine nearly half of all the people you know gone, their voices silenced forever. The scale of the tragedy is almost impossible to comprehend. Yet, amidst the devastation, the world began to change. With so many dead, the balance of power between peasants and lords shifted. Labor became scarce, giving survivors new leverage. Serfs demanded higher wages and better treatment. The rigid structure of medieval society began to crack, paving the way for profound economic and social transformation. In a twisted way, the plague helped shape the birth of modern Europe. It forced societies to question authority, religion, and even the very meaning of life and death. But the scars ran deep. Art and literature became obsessed with death. Paintings depicted skeletal figures dancing among the living, reminding everyone that life was fragile and fleeting. The danse macabre, or dance of death, became a symbol of this grim reality. In the centuries that followed, the memory of the plague haunted Europe. It was retold in whispered stories, etched into chronicles, and carried forward as a warning of how fragile civilization can be. What makes the Black Death so haunting is not just the sheer scale of death, but the mystery of survival. Some villages were wiped out completely, while others nearby were left untouched. Families vanished overnight, while others endured with barely a scratch. Why did some live while so many died? Science has since uncovered answers, pointing to genetic resistance and the randomness of exposure. But for those who lived through it, it must have felt like pure chance, as if fate itself had chosen who would live and who would die. Today, the Black Death remains one of history's darkest chapters, a grim reminder of nature's power to humble humanity. Modern medicine may protect us from such horrors, yet the lessons remain urgent. We are never truly invincible. Just as in the 14th century, a single invisible microbe still has the power to alter the course of human history. And so, when we look back at the Black Death, we see not just the story of death and despair, but also the resilience of the human spirit. A world brought to its knees rose again, forever changed, but not destroyed. The plague taught humanity that survival is possible, even in the face of unthinkable catastrophe. It is a reminder that in the darkest of times, the will to endure can still shape the future. This is Quest Revealers. If you want to explore more mysteries, forgotten histories, and the stories that shaped our world, subscribe now, share this video, and join us as we continue to uncover the secrets of the past.